Join me in this episode of the vlog where I photograph stunning reflections on Loch Garden, make friends with the local wildlife and get lost in an ancient Caledonian pine forest. I am in the Boat of Garden today in the Abernethy Forest. It's a little bit grey and a little bit wet, but we're not going to let that dampen our spirits. It's a stunning morning. I can hear all of the birds in the trees in this absolutely stunning pine forest that's surrounding me. I've got a beautiful Loch to my left with reflections, and I'm really looking forward to spending the day out with the camera. So I've come down to the edge of Loch Garden. The forest is just to the left of me there, but just as I was looking through the trees, what's caught my eye is that the loch's absolutely calm and flat, and there's some beautiful reflections. And just over the other side of the water, there's a stunning pine tree with a group of rocks, and it really sort of sits nicely against that backdrop of other pines behind it, but with those reflections, I'm going to set up the camera here. I'm not sure if I'm a little bit too far away, but what I think I'll do is I'll put on the long lens, set up the camera here, set up my composition and just take a look through the back of the camera. I might have to move along the loch a little bit, but wow, what a morning. It's just so peaceful, and the water is so calm and flat. And yeah, anyway, we'll set up the camera and we'll see how this looks. So I'm going to put on my 70 to 200mm lens and see if I can get as close as I can into there. Obviously the sky behind is just white and grey, so there's not much point in sort of including any of that, but if I can zoom right in and capture some of that reflection in the rocks. So I'll set up the camera. There's also another group of trees just to my right, which it's not such a sort of a good composition, but the colours in the trees are beautiful because there's a silver birch and some other pines just by the side of it. So I've got two shots already, and I've got a little wee duck as well that's just come to pay me a visit. So anyway, it's a good start. So I've got on my 70 to 200mm lens and I've zoomed in as far as I can, eliminating that sky. Let me show you what I'm looking at on the back of the camera. So you can see I've positioned the main pine right in the center of my image, and we've got that beautiful reflection off the bottom of the loch. On my right hand side I've got the white rock, which really balances out nicely from the left hand side, where we've got that I think it's a small pine on my left. I'm not sure, I can't tell from here, but it's a beautiful balanced image. I'm sort of placing the bank along the loch there along my bottom third, just to really sort of give it a real pleasing composition. But the light's absolutely beautiful. It's really soft. I mean, perhaps with a little bit of more side lighting, it would give it a little bit more definition. But it really is a nice, soft, gentle image, and really conjures up the sort of area around here. We've got the Scots pine, we've got the beautiful Loch with its reflections. There's just some water droplets hitting the Loch, but I'm using a fairly long exposure just to sort of help eliminate some of those sort of ripples in the water and help really emphasize those reflections. But what a great start. I'm going to take a couple of images and, well, here's the first shot. So I'm going to put on a polarizer just to see if I can bring out the colours in the greens from the pines. But I want to be really careful because I don't want to knock back those reflections in the water too much, because they really are part of the image. But by putting on the polarizer, it's going to take my exposure time from about half a second to a second, which is really going to help soften out that water. It's raining fairly heavy now, so there's a lot of ripples in the water, but by adding the polarizer, as I say, one, hoping to bring out the saturation in the greens, but also just give me that little bit longer exposure. So we'll see how that goes. So I've just now swung my camera around to the right slightly because there's some beautiful silver birches that are just nestled in amongst that backdrop of pines. And I really like the way that those reflect in the water. We've got these beautiful lines coming out from the silver birches. I don't think it's as good as a stronger, not as strong composition as the last one, but I think the sort of detail and the colour is more interesting. And as I say, I really like those reflections. Those silver birches are coming down across into the water. Let me show you on the back of the camera. So you can see I've swung the camera around and I've got this beautiful grouping of trees, and it's that silver birch in the middle. There's three of them together that are really capturing my eye, and I love that reflection as those silvery white trees cut through the dark colour of the Loch right in front there. In fact, you've got some reflections on the left and some reflections on the right. And again, I've still got the polarizer on, so that's giving me around about a second exposure, but I'm not using it too much because I don't want to lose those reflections. It's raining, but it's absolutely stunning, and you can hear all of the birds around. It was an early start to the morning, but well worth it. And anyway, here's the second image. Okay, so I've just switched the camera over now to give myself some portrait compositions. And what I'm doing is just isolating those three silver birches, which I think really do look nice against that backdrop of pines. And by switching over to portrait view, it just really isolates them. And I'm going to do that along the bank. When you come across a scene like this with so many different variations, it's worth just putting on the long lens and just lining up some nice compositions just to see how they look on the camera. And that's what I'm going to do. Just spend a bit of time here just changing the camera composition, landscape portrait, and shooting some of these beautiful groups of trees. that's a really good start to the morning. I got to say, I looked at the weather this morning and it was forecast for heavy rain, and I wasn't sure whether this was going to be the right location for the day, but I am so glad I stuck with it because it's really stunning. I think that combination of soft light, there's lots of cloud around, so the light's really diffused. And we've got the reflections because it's so still across the water. So perfect for conditions for the location I'm in. So anyway, we'll move on. I think I'll head into the woods a little bit, look at some of the trees that are just within the forest along the edge of the loch here. And I'm a little bit worried about losing some of the, if I carry on around the loch a little bit, I'm a bit worried about losing some of these nice reflections in the trees on the bank. But it's quite possible that really I've already captured some of those best scenes. So anyway, pack up the bag, head on around, cut into the forest a little bit, look at the trees, and let's go see what else we can find. So just as I was packing up my bag there, I just turned to the left and I've just caught a glimpse of this really beautiful old bit of root, I think it is, bit of tree root that's just in the edge of the loch here. And it's really stunning. It's got some beautiful textures in it, but the water around it is incredibly dark. And there's some dark roots behind it. So I'm just going to pop on the long lens and just see if I can capture that one before I head off. I was just walking along the edge of the loch here and this pine just caught my eye. It was obviously stood up right along the edge of the bank at some point and has gone over. You can see the roots have pulled out, but I love the way that those branches are still continuously growing, almost like small trees in themselves. And I really like the way that these Scots pines, they have these orangey red branches that really stand out with the soft green pine needles that just add a splash of colour. I was walking around it just to see if I could actually isolate it in some way, but unfortunately that light on the water is just a little bit too bright, and unfortunately there's just way too much dynamic range to capture that. But yeah, stunning and just so peaceful. I'm working my way through the forest to see if I can find a nice grouping of trees, just to sort of, I just would like to capture some of the bottom of these pines. I think this one is actually a silver birch, but a bottom of the pines with the lichen growing up the sides, and it's a stunning forest area, but just finding that composition in amongst the mass of trees. So I've just come up into the forest a little bit here, and there's just two trees that have caught my eye. There's a pine and a silver birch that just have a little bit of character to them. They look a little bit scraggy, but there's something about them that's really sort of attracted me to the scene. I really like that because we've had this rain, all of the sort of green foliage is really sort of punched out in colour, and there are mosses and branches, there's texture and there's colour. And I just really like these two characters here within the forest that have just caught my eye. So I'm just going to move about a little bit and just see if I can get a nice composition where I haven't got sort of one tree blending into another. And yeah, I think it's going to be a nice image. I don't think it's going to be a sort of a award-winning shot, not the best sort of, but I like it. It's caught my eye, so it's definitely worth taking. I've got a little bit of light coming through the trees at the back, so I just need to be a little bit careful that I haven't got any sort of strong blown out highlights from the pines behind. But anyway, I'm going to put on the camera and let's see what we've got. So I don't think it's going to be an amazing composition, but I really do love the textures in the bottom of this forest. And as I say, that light, the soft diffused light with that rain that's been coming down throughout the morning has just saturated the colours. And so I've basically got this pine in front of me, which has got the textures of the bark. It's some beautiful colours coming through, almost some oranges in amongst that bark working its way up. And then we've got this sort of silver birch in the back, which it does look a little bit sorry for itself. The branches are coming down, but and then we've got this backdrop of pines and the light behind. It's yeah, I don't know. It's not the best composition, but it's got a lovely feel to the image, and it definitely captures this beautiful forest. The forest floor is just covered in, we've got wild blueberry plants, we've got the damp soft moss, and then we've got some of these juniper plants that are just growing up in amongst the backdrop. It's an absolute carpet of foliage. Are you like me? When you're in a forest, you just find image after image? Or do you go into a woodland like this and find it difficult to find scenes? Is there too much going on? Let me know in the comments below. So I wandered deep into the sort of forest here, and if you just look behind me, that tree's just caught my eye. It's just covered in lichen and the soft light of the moss coming up the tree. So I'm just going to see if I can get in a better position to see if I can frame that up and get an image from it. There's a couple of trees around it which are a bit tricky, but this is absolutely stunning. There's little pockets of these trees that are just in amongst the pines that really stand out. So I'm going to work my way through the vegetation and see if I can get in good position for a shot. So you can see on the back of the camera that I've really filled my image with that beautiful silver birch there. And the actual lichen and the textures on it are quite stunning. But what I don't like, from the position I'm in at the moment, I've got this stray silver birch tree that just comes out of the back of it, sort of protrudes from the main tree. And I want to try and get rid of that if I can. And also I'm not so keen on this dark tree that is just to the right at the back there, that's just really sort of coming into my image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up the camera and I'm just going to bring myself to the right a little bit here. If I just relocate, and then if I just show you now what I'm looking at, you can see that just by moving there, I have got rid of that stray silver birch behind. Now, I am not so keen on the sort of branch composition there. I'm losing some of that goes off to the left, but I do like the group of pines that sit behind it. So I think I'm going to play around with this composition now in this spot. I'll take both, always take both pictures if you're not sure, because it's not until you get it back on the computer that you can decide. But wow, what a find. It really is a stunning tree in amongst these pines here. And just to be able to capture it is a real privilege. So I'm just going to play about, get several different compositions, see the one I like, and well, this is how it came out. So I think I've just about taken every sort of different composition I can on this tree, just allowing for everything. It's a beautiful tree, not easy to photograph. I would have liked to have kind of, everything's a little bit too central, but yeah, stunning. So given myself lots of options. Now I'm just going to head off. There's another couple of trees just off in the back of the forest there that have caught my eye. So I think I'm just going to pick up sticks, move over that way a little bit and see what else I can find. Well, that's it for this episode of the vlog. It's been a stunning day. We started off on the edge of the loch really early this morning, capturing those beautiful reflections, ended up in this stunning forest. An absolutely incredible day. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have and you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell notification, and please leave a comment down below. It is so good to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.